Hello and welcome back to Satisfactory. My name is Okada, and today we are going to start a very, very large project. Very, very large. And to be honest, I don't know that we're going to get it done in one session because it's going to be a lot of work and a lot of math and a lot of space consideration. And of course, what I'm talking about is finally getting our full-blown oil processing up and running. I mean, the whole enchilada. We're getting all the oils. Yeah, we're going to exploit the new area in the west that we ran line to in the last session, and we're going to milk it for everything it's worth. And, well, that takes a lot of space and a lot of material and a lot of planning consideration. So I'm going to head over to the warehouse and start preparing for materials and do some math, and then we'll head out to the new area and start working on the layout. All right, here we are at the warehouse, kind of becoming our central hub of operations. That's where all our stuff is. And actually, we came here, but to be honest, we need to go somewhere else first. And that's because we need to unlock something. We also need to get some stuff out of our inventory so that we have room to operate with. So let's head to the hub. All right, and here we are. So first of all, today we are going to need these. We need the Mark II pipelines. So let's research them, get the stuff out of our inventory. Big red button. Oh, away it goes.
Improved pipelines and pumps can now be constructed, capable of
All
handling
right.
increased throughput of any fluid.
So while we're
as
standing
well as
here and we have some
providing
open
increased
space,
pressure handling for better vertical transport, respectively.
let's start to do some math. And in order to do math, we need to know what the numbers are. So our plan is, of course, to do oil today, but it's going to be product focused over fuel. Now, we want to generate lots of fuel because we need lots of power. But there's a couple of ways you can go about it. Of course, we have crude oil coming in. So if we cursor over this right here, on the bottom right, you see cost. It's the black pipe. That's the crude oil. Now, if we were to cursor over, say, residual plastic, you'll see that the cost is actually the resin and water, so it's the blue pipe. So those are our two options for getting plastic or rubber. It's the same. And we're going to go with the crude oil option. Now, if we went with the polymer resin option, we would have to first turn our crude oil into fuel and resin. And there is an alternate recipe for lots of resin, which is a really cool recipe. In fact, we passed it up at one point because there was something more important. And I wouldn't mind getting that for the future. But if we were to do this, because remember, we want both fuel and we want product, we would produce more fuel than resin. And with the consumption rate, we would end up with a lot less plastic and rubber and a lot more fuel. And while we want a lot of fuel, we want our products more. So we're going to go with the crude oil conversion. Now, the conversion rate of crude oil to product is the same for both plastic and rubber. It's 30 per minute to 20, though the heavy oil residue, which is how we're going to get our fuel, does actually change. So for plastic, it's 10 per minute. For rubber, it is 20 per minute. So we are going to simplify things, and we're going to do half rubber, half plastic, which means we are going to average 15 heavy oil residue per minute over the entire factory. That makes math a lot easier. And then after we have heavy oil, we need to turn that into fuel. So it's a 60 to 40. And then finally, we're going to turn all that fuel into the good stuff, turbo fuel. And here's where the math gets a little weird. 22.5 and down to 18.75. So let's actually bring up the spreadsheet and start to make some sense out of all this, and that's how we can kind of plan what are we going to need of everything? And more importantly, how many refineries are we going to need? Because this is a 3-step conversion process. All right, here is our spreadsheet. If you guys remember this, it's not that impressive. But yeah, I mean, so far the only thing we have in the red, of course, is rubber, which is what we're going to set out to fix. Let's go over to our scratch pad and scroll over a little bit here because I have already laid this out. It's not pretty because it is the scratch pad. It's not meant to be formal. At the new site, we have 2 pure and 2 normal nodes. And this is the overclocking. So right now we're having at a 1.0, right, a 100%. And at 100%, we're producing 240 per pure, 120 per normal. So we kind of consider those, we combine them into another pure. But that is a total of 720 crude oil per minute. Since we use 30 crude oil per minute for a refinery, that means we'll need 24 refineries to convert all that crude oil over to plastic and rubber, which would give us 240 plastic and 240 rubber, because remember, it's going to be the same. We'll have half of the refineries will be plastic, half of them will be rubber, so the output's the same for both. And we will be averaging 15 heavy oil per minute, since it's an even split. That means we're producing 360 heavy oil per minute, which once converted at 60 to 40 is 240 fuel per minute. And then converting that over to turbo fuel will use up 22.5 fuel per minute. We need to make sure these two numbers match up because we're using 100% of our fuel. The fuel is the thing that's going to slow us down, not the compacted coal. We will need 160 compacted coal, and converting that at 22.5 will give us 200 turbo fuel per minute. Turbo fuel burns at 4.5 per minute per generator. So one generator eats up only 4.5 turbo fuel per minute, which, like I said, the stuff's amazing. So that leaves us with 44.44 generators producing 6.7 gigawatts. Pretty good, right? And all those refineries will use up 1.2 gigawatts. So you can see the refineries are pretty heavy on the power requirement. And here is a breakdown. We will need 6 refineries for the fuel conversion from heavy oil to regular fuel. And then would need 10.7 more refineries to go from regular fuel to turbo fuel. But why stop there? We can overclock our sources, right? Because overclocking really just costs us power. And remember, this production chain is producing power, and we're going to get more power out of the system than we put into it from the overclocking. Now, this is just the power from refineries, so we're not calculating the megawatts coming from the extractors. It's not that big of a deal. I'm not too worried about it. I just wanted this to give us a ballpark figure. But if we crank this all the way up to 250%, meaning 3 power shards per, we are now producing 1,800 crude oil per minute. And you see the numbers all line out real nice. This is actually quite easy from a mathematics standpoint. So that's going to give us 60 refineries just for the conversion of crude to heavy oil. That's going to give us 600 plastic, 600 rubber per minute. That's fantastic. We can do a lot with that. It's only going to take us 15 refineries to do that conversion. Then it's going to take us another 27 to go to turbo fuel. Of course, the numbers are starting to come up quite a bit. That means we're going to have 101 refineries just for all the conversions. It's actually starting to take up a lot of space. And for the generators, remember, it's only 4.5 turbo fuel per minute. That's 111, 112 generators. That's also going to take up a lot of space. So those are our numbers. Whew, that's a big deal. So let's hide the spreadsheet. And we need to prepare for all of that. Fortunately, we have this wonderful ability to queue up our needs. So we said 102 refineries. We're going to actually say 105 because we're probably going to do some funny splitting of things for making things look, even. And 112 generators, which we'll probably hit that right on the dot. But we'll just grab a few extra, just to give us some leeway. And that's a lot of stuff. Ooh, oh my goodness, look at all the rubber. And all the quick wire. Oh man, yeah, all right. So let's start putting this stuff together. Let's get back to the warehouse where most of the stuff is. Of course, rubber we're gonna have to go fetch. Oh, look at all that copper sheeting. So we are breaking even on copper sheeting, if you recall. We're not producing any extra copper sheeting. So I shut off the sync of our motors and our rotors, which are using up our copper sheeting, so that we can actually have a net income of it. So for now, they're not being sunk. So that at least we have an input of copper sheeting for all of this and for all the piping we're going to have to do. So we're going to start out by just emptying our inventory. Let's hit down here. Organization. Let's get a couple of containers for our current inventory. And we'll just toss some down for all this stuff. Because we just want to make sure we have everything we need for the basic construction. So we're going to do a store all. Okay, I only need one just on it. And this way we don't have to worry about overlapping. We'll just leave our general inventory as our usual stuff. And I'm going to run around and start putting all of these together. Starting with motors. 2,400. We don't even have enough. All right. Excellent. Good start. All right. Encased industrial beams. Check. Steel pipe. Check. Computers. Check. I ran out of inventory space, so I need to get 100 more heavy modular frames. It's not enough space. So I moved where we're storing these. This will all make sense momentarily if it's not already obvious what we're going to have to do. And all of our copper sheeting, 2200, that covers it. Quick wire, fortunately we have a gigantic quick wire factory, which I took a quick ride down to and picked up a bunch of quick wire. And rubber, fortunately we had stored up multiple storages of rubber, knowing that we were going to be at a deficit once we started doing computers. This is a pretty big hit, but that's okay. We still have plenty, so we're fine on that. That's the last of our heavy modular frames. Now we just need 375 of motors, which should have, the machines were backed up anyway. All right, and that's going to be it for those. So that should be everything. Obviously, we can't carry it all on us. That's okay. We don't need to. And I don't... Okay, yeah, I used all but that storage container. So I moved the storage containers over here for a very important reason. And let's get our inventory back. And another thing that we need to consider is this is going to take up, again, a lot of space. A lot of space. And we will go through kind of calculating that space once we get to the site. But what's important about it is that we're going to need lots of concrete because platforms are moderately expensive at large scale. So we need to bring a undetermined amount of concrete with us, and I don't really feel like doing that. Fortunately, we have a train, so we're going to modify this setup here. That looks right. Just like that. And just like that. Yeah, excellent. Perfect. Now we have an output for concrete. And what we're going to do is we're going to run that, and we're going to build a station right here. So we're going to build 3 stations. Get out of my face. All right, there, and we're out of cable. Give me just a second. That's better. Okay, so we can just wrap this around like that. And do the same up here. And let's get logistics. There we go. This way they can flow down. Now, everything will eventually make its way into these storage stations. And the train will just bring us everything. We'll just have them unload into storage over there. And finally, I'm not going to go Mark 3 on this because I just don't want to drain all of our supply. It's just going to be supplemental. We already will have plenty with us. And I think that's it, right? Perfect. So let's pop these bad boys down. They'll have to go through a load cycle. You know, it has a dock. And everything will be good. All right, I think we are set to take a ride to the new area and get started doing this. So I'll see you guys there. All right, here we are. Sending the train on to go pick up the stuff. And while it's away, empty car, 1, 2, and apparently I forgot to put another one down there. Oh, and I have stuff in my inventory. Okay, so we need 3 stations. And by the way, this station is temporary. It's not part of the final design. All right, so we are going to start mapping out, not necessarily the exact spot that the place is going to be at. We're going to map out where we want the platforms to be, but we won't necessarily get all of the dimensions exact right at the beginning, because we have to work out how much space each individual thing that we're going to do is going to take up. Remember, we're doing 100 refineries, and that's not subtle. So we need to see how much space is that going to, really translate into. And we need to make sure we want to have some ground clearance, because part of this design is going to require underground territory. And not to give too much away, but the rail station, like I said, this station is not permanent. This is a temporary station. We're actually going to incorporate the station into the grand design. It's going to be part of the factory. We need to find a ginormous amount of area and start drawing out our refineries. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to start with kind of the corner and work our way inwards, because we're going to do kind of a horseshoe design. We're going to break down the refineries in blocks of 20, because we said we're going to take 60 refineries to do the initial conversion from crude oil over to the plastic and rubber and the heavy oil. And so we're going to do a U shape of 20, 20, and 20. And if we do that from a corner, we can stack it inwards, because we have to do refineries, two refineries, two refineries, and then we can use the inner space for our fuel generators, as well as incorporating the station in there. So I'm going to get to first just kind of drawing ourselves away to find out where we can get a corner going and make sure we have enough height to be able to do some, some elevation change. So give me just a minute here. We'll be right back. All right, so I think I've worked out generally where I want the corner to be and where the height is going to need to be, so we have some room underneath. That will clear the island pretty well. I think in all directions, it looks pretty good. I don't have to worry about it hitting that, because we're not going to pave over the entire thing. We just need some space down there. And this zigzags a little bit. You'll see when we get down there. But I want to make sure that in case we end up finding that we need to expand backwards, that we don't run into the spine. I'm not worried about the left and right expansion, because we can always go further that way. There's no obstacles. But we still don't know, where the center is going to be, because we don't know how much space it's going to take up. So what we need to do first is kind of divide and conquer. We know that we're going to do 20 refineries on each side. It's a good way to start with, figuring out the width that we need, how many platforms it's going to take up. So let's change up our list here. Let's just clear it. So let's go with 20 refineries to make sure we have enough on us. Material-wise, we do not. And let's go with 20 generators as well. There we go. All right, we got most of the materials that we need. Some of the stuff's still being delivered. That's okay. We have enough to do what we're going to do at the moment. The main thing we're shy on is quick wire, and that is for the generators. And that's the last part. So this is going to be the corner here, most likely. And this is going to take a ginormous amount of space. So we're just going to draw out a fair amount like that, a fair amount like that. And we need to just start placing down, and we know one row is going to require enough space for 20 refineries. And of course, we'll want a little bit of buffer space on the outside in case, we need to run anything like, conveyors or pipes or whatever. So I think this is going to be a good start right here. Now, we're going to pick up 100% of the things that we put down right now, because this is just getting the math. And since we're going to be doing a kind of a corner configuration, we're going to have to move these out. That'll make more sense in a bit. So, well, it was off a little bit. I don't care. All we care about is how far side by side it goes. All right, that's 20 refineries. That's one side. And again, since we're going to be stacking them or tiering them inwards, we won't be able to just, say, I know we don't have the material for it right now, but when we take the turn, we won't be able to just corner it like this, because we're going to have, refineries in front of them. Another row. kind of like that, that will be doing the next level of conversion. And so those will have to, offset and then move backwards some more. So we need to kind of keep that in mind when we're counting these. Now, fortunately, I have the mod loaded for infinite zoop. I'm not, stuck to just zooping for 10. And this ended right on the edge. Nice. So we can use that to easily count, what kind of our minimal width or our starting width is to the platform. Keeping in mind that we're probably going to have to go another like 5 or 6 out in each direction. 26, 25. All right, so 25 gives us a starting point. And let's grab some more material. In fact, we don't really need to. Let's do that. And kind of figure out how the cornering is going to work, so we know how far off we have to offset. So we say we start perfectly cornered like that. This gives us easier math. So that goes out 1, 2.5. So let's start on the half for the next one. We would be running a fair amount of piping because, well, it's not going to be hard for this one, right? Because it's going to go from heavy oil to converting here. Obviously, we wouldn't do this. We'll bring all these together and then split them out. So it won't be a direct machine-to-machine feed because it's not a 1-to-1. But we want to make sure we have enough room to run piping up and down. So we're going to want to move this out. About another full square. That looks pretty good, because then that'll give us room to, build these up. I don't have my general material on me, but to build these up and pull them together and split them over and then split them again out to the machines. We'll have 5 of these, probably right here in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then there will be a gap of some sort, and then the rest of the ones that are lined up will be for converting to turbo fuel. So we're going to go 2 deep on refineries, just like this. This looks pretty good, right? And that allows us to figure out how far we have to offset the actual first refineries. Because of the corner, right? We're going to take the corner here. It would be something like this. This was 1 in, right? We're not counting this. One in from the corner. This was our count side. That means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we would start on the 9th one. And then we can start looking at, how much space is it going to take for all of the generators. And we'll just pretend that this row is the second row of refineries. And we'll just place a bunch of generators down and see how many we can get within that 20 span. Remembering that we're going to have a little bit of a gap in the middle anyhow for walkways and whatnot. I don't know that we're going to want to put it straight on the corner. The only thing that should be coming to them is a pipe. We don't need to worry too much about room for conveyors. It's all going to be piping. And, 1 full block there, that's fine, right? We can do a row and a row. So I think that will be okay. And let's just See how many of these we can fit in. And we're keeping the counter on the top right, or on the just right side, that says fuel generator 19 because we've placed one. All right. These things are fickle. All right. Okay, that's the last one that we can fit in here. So exactly 20 wide, looks like it comes up to 10, right? It says 10 fuel generators on top right corner, or right corner. So we placed 10 of them. That's pretty easy math, right? We go 20 wide, we go 10. We have to do, just a lot that way. But that should make it for fairly easy math. Again, we'll have a gap in between these, but we'll just inherit that gap, where appropriate once we get to placing these out. And again, there's still the logistics of getting things around, getting all the plastic and the rubber out of the area, getting all the fluids in and moved around, and quite importantly, incorporating the new station into this design, which I have an image in my head. Hopefully it'll come out nice, but we'll see. But the station will end up displacing some of the fuel generators, but that's fine because we're building a horseshoe, right? We're building refineries here, refineries there, and these can just keep going on as far as they need to. We want to make it, symmetric and look good as much as we can, but it's okay that these are likely to spill out. But I think that we've made tremendous progress in the planning stage, and we have all the materials that we need clear to start on this once we figure out the actual full width that we need. And I know we're running shy on time, but I've been keeping notes as we went along. 20 refineries wide is 25 platforms. In fact, exactly. Going from the back of the first tier to the front of the second tier is about 7 blocks. We say we want to have a couple of blocks to push out the placement of the generators. We want to make sure we have one extra on the side going around. And we're going to say a couple of foundations wide for the walkways going down the center. So we need to do a little math there. We're going to 25. We need the left and the right will both have to have their 7 gap plus 2 plus the one on the edge. So that's going to be 20 more. That puts us at 45. 2 more, 47. So the back row should be, we're going to say 47 foundations long. So that's 30 right there. So the end of this platform right here is 30. There we go. That's our 47. See, all the way to the far end. Yeah, this is the dimensions of our future oil platform. And I say future because we're not going to get it done in this episode. It's just, this is taking quite some time. And it's necessary. These are the processes we go through, especially when we're going to do mega builds. So we will actually build it next episode. See if we can get to a high spot. I don't have the materials to build a lookout platform because they're all in a storage. Let's kind of get an aerial view here of what we're talking about. Ooh, yeah, that is going a long ways. But it's going to be industrial, and this is going to really bring us, forward in our progression. And I don't think I'm going to go home. I think we're just going to stay here. This is our new home for this episode. Hopefully we will be able to return home by the end of next episode with this victoriously constructed. So thank you so very much for coming out. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was informative because, typically I like to get a full build in on a given session, but this series is called Pixel Perfect. There's a reason for it. I don't like to go, oops, well, no one will notice. We'll just fudge this off to the side. And if we take the time to do it right, we minimize the chance that we'll have to tear the whole thing down and redo it again because we need to move it over. And you know me by now, if we run into that, I will tear this whole thing down and I will start it all over again if I need to get it all lined up. So thank you very much for coming out. Again, I hope you enjoyed it. Please be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed it. And, definitely stop by the comment section. Let me know what you think. And, again, it helps tailor the direction of the series going forward. So thanks again for coming out. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't. And definitely be sure to come back for the next episode when we turn this entire area into a giant oil processing megaplex.